kindly settle down so that we can begin. Thank you very much. Who is leading the submissions? Is it you, Governor?
I am, Your Excellency.
Aribu, please start.
Thank you. We need a moment to settle down.
And as you settle down,
and just to note, you have 20 minutes, like everyone else, so that you make sure you use your time well by sticking to the issues and avoiding too much explanation, so that you're able to meet all your.
Thank you.
As you do, Governor Ruto, I'm sure you don't need any introduction to anybody here, but you may have to do a quick introduction of your side. Yeah? It's okay?
Thank you, Chair.
The front, yeah.
Thank you, Co-Chair. We will introduce our members very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And allow me to ask my colleague, Dr. Karugo, to do so as we.
And because you're a huge group, we'll allow you, Governor, because you're a huge group, kindly just introduce the leadership at the front, and we'll be okay with that.
We are sufficiently guided, Your Excellency. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, co-chairs. In front of you is the team from Azimio. We have Barnabas in the far left, is part of the technical team. We have Wakili Ndegwa Njiru. I'm sure he's not a new face to all of you. We have Fred Abongo, also part of the technical team. We have Honorable Maison Le Chamo, also from Jubilee Party. We have then Kavina Lawyer Tim, who is from DAPK, and we have Mr. Manji from Jubilee Party. This is just part of the team. We have a larger part behind us. I think as the chair of Azimio Women's League, allow me to ask all the Azimio women to be upstanding. We presented in front of you a memorandum. We have a representation from about 10 of the coalition parties. The party league chairs are also present. So at some point in the presentation, we will also speak about the 2/3 gender role. I thank you very much.
Okay, you may proceed now, Governor.
Thank you very much indeed. We obviously have a presentation, a summarized presentation on PowerPoint, but the committee will already have received a detailed presentation of the issues from Azimio. I am Derito Mureithi. I'm chair of the Economic Council of the Azimio Coalition, Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition. So we thank you very much indeed for the time, and we shall make haste. The issues to be addressed as the dialogue committee has agreed and directed, so I won't really delve into them. Cost of living then, and the first item to say about cost of living is that Article 43 of the Constitution places a duty on the state to deliver on the rights and the social and economic rights under Article 43 to the highest attainable standards. You will find on close examination that the issues of cost of living are in fact contained within Article 43. So 3 broad points we'll address very quickly on the cost of living. And those 3 points are what drives cost of living. And those things are the management of exchange rate, the management of public finances, as well as the mix that is used to manage those instruments. On the question of exchange rate, I think what you will see on the slide before you is what has happened in the last 12 months. That the Kenya shilling has collapsed from 120 shillings to $1 to 150 shillings to $1 US. The effect of it, of that 25% depreciation of the shilling, that is transmitted directly into the cost of living. So that everything that you are buying this year, this August or this October, is 25% more expensive than it was last year, simply because of the effect of the exchange rate. Of course, the committee will want to address itself, what drives exchange rate. You've had some of it already here from FKE. Portfolio flows, meaning the monies that foreigners come to invest in our stock exchange. And what has happened is that the foreigners have left. That's why the stock exchange is at its lowest point, and I'll show you a slide to that effect in just a moment. Now, we've said to the committee, management of public finances as a key driver of the cost of living questions. Why? Because taxation and borrowing have a direct bearing on what happens to the citizen, and we'll show you a couple of slides on that. Where we are, if you on the outlook, is that we expect. When I say we expect, these are the policies and instruments that have been placed already in Parliament. For example, the budget policy statement and the midterm expenditure framework. What does it call for? It calls for increased taxation. So next year, taxes are expected to go up 400 billion. It calls for continued borrowing, and I'll show you a slide in a moment, that the budget deficit is in the order of 760 billion, and that is expected, that is what is planned. Both things imply that it is not possible to bring the cost of living under control. Third point to make, experts agree we are in dire possibility, we are in debt distress, and the risk of debt default is looming, and all those things show that in fact we are on a terrible trajectory. Is it only against the dollar that the shilling is losing ground? That's a chart that shows you what has happened to the shilling in relation to the Tanzanian shilling. If you just go back to the slide, what you'll notice, we're moving from, again, a similar kind of depreciation of the Kenya shilling against Tanzania. So that the argument that this is a global problem is not exactly global for every, what individual countries are doing has a lot to explain the cost of living for their citizens. Now, management of public finances is, honorable members, fairly straightforward. You make spending plans. Those spending plans need to be financed. So either you are taxing to get money to finance your budget, or you're borrowing. Usually you're doing both. What is the issue? Why is it difficult to bring the cost of living under control? Because the tools that are being used today are blunting economic activity. They are eroding confidence. Again, going back to why is the stock exchange performing so poorly? It is leading to the flight of capital from the securities exchange, and the mix of taxation and interest is not working. The big headline point there is the budget deficit of 768 billion this year, anticipated to be 760 billion next year. Where do you get that data? From the budget policy statement and the midterm expenditure framework. Those are the same numbers in a slide. What you will see there is continued increment of government spending. And if the committee permits, economists think about cost of living or inflation as too much money chasing too few goods. So if you want to bring inflation down, then you have to slow down on expenditure. You don't accelerate expenditure. Now what the combination of policies is doing is to increase expenditure. Yeah? And you are increasing that expenditure by borrowing. So you are suffering a double whammy. Of course, you will ask us, how then can you reduce government expenditure? What can you do? Well, first of all, eliminate corruption and theft of public resources, eliminate waste, inefficiencies, and imprudent use of public resources. To give you an example, last financial year, last quarter of financial year, so June, May, April, or May, April, June of this past financial year, 193.4 billion went to domestic and international travel. Compare that, for example, to what is expected from the housing tax, which is 70 billion. Meaning, if we did not travel, we may not have needed to collect the housing tax. You could have financed it by just stopping excessive travel. When you look at social protection, which is being reduced, when you look at the resources to counties that are not growing, all of those things could have been resolved if we avoided excessive expenditure. The other thing that happens when you're borrowing, the other thing that happens when you're borrowing is that, of course, you have to pay. So debt service, what is the issue here? The issue is that debt service is now 67% of actual tax collection. Okay? And that slide shows you where is the source of this data. Again, budget review and budget outlook, budget review and economic outlook, as well as the financial statement for this financial year. The point being, can you really grow taxation by 530 billion, which is what is anticipated this year, and can you grow it at a time when the economic conditions are so poor? What is the effect of excessive borrowing? You squeeze out the private sector, and that is what that slide, again, from the quarterly economic review by Treasury, that is what it is showing you. That the spread, the difference between what depositors are being paid by banks and what government is paying those same banks to borrow that money, that's the spread, and what you see there, it is growing. The effect of it is to squeeze out the private sector. And I think FKE were before us, and they explained this point very strongly. This is what FKE was saying, that this, the securities exchange is now considered the worst performing. Not considered, that is what the data is showing, the drop being what is on the slide before you. Economic growth, because when you squeeze private sector to the corner, then there is no economic growth. And this is exactly what is happening. If you compare growth quarter to quarter, what you will find is that economic growth has flatlined. Yeah. So with the exception of the COVID recovery in 2021, when you look at quarter two, basically it has flatlined. We dig deeper in two slides. What really, this inflation or this cost of living, what's inside it, what is driving it? That's the way it is. Food and fuel. So the policies we pursue must address food and fuel costs. But this is the outcome of what has happened in the last 12 months. And you can see, again, this is a data and graphic from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. Everything, with the exception of one item there, has gone up with percentages of between 7 and 60-something%. Same there with non-food items like fuel. What you will notice, in fact, this is 1 month old now. This is before the dramatic increase in fuel price this September. So those numbers can only get worse. I know we are fond of blaming international crude prices. That is not fair to anybody because it's not true. That is, and this data again, published by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that is the way crude prices are behaving. They are on average 34% lower than they were last year. So it cannot be that they are the reason fuel prices are going up. What is to be done? We must stimulate production by reducing interest rates. We must reduce taxation on energy, on fuel, on food. Taxation to SMEs is the only way you can stimulate production. We must have a balanced budget. Some have argued not possible. It is possible. In 2003, 2004, 2005, you had a balanced budget and you are able to implement the items of Article 43, like free primary education, zero-based budgeting, and so on. I have to move faster. Finance Act 2023 should repeal it in its entirety. In any case, the broad policy point is reduced taxation. Next cluster of items, review of or audit of the elections. Now, first of all,
with regard to strengthening multi-party democracy, and particularly coalition arrangements,